Hello everybody, this is Hammer Striker here. I've got an interesting combination on the table. I've got a Glock 26. This happens to be a Gen 4, often known as the baby Glock, and it did hold the title of the smallest Glock until the 43-42 series came out. This was for many years kind of the gold standard in small, compact, concealed carry. It offered the largest capacity, 10 rounds in the flush mag, in the smallest size at the time. That's changed. That's actually changed quite a bit. If we move out here, I've got the P365, and this is the original design version of the P365. It's also available in an XL version and an SAS version. So Sig Sauer has definitely come into the game hard with a concealed carry gun, and it's got a few characteristics that make it potentially surpass the Glock. So let's go ahead and take each one of these, make sure that they're unloaded, which they are. So I have an unloaded Glock, and I have an unloaded Sig. I'll drop the magazine out of it. So what's so special about the P365? Well, the biggest thing that's special about the P365 is it has the same capacity as the Glock, 10 rounds with its flush magazine, which I ended up putting over here in the corner, in a much smaller, except for one dimension, and I'll show you that in a minute, thinner package. So it's kind of taken the baby concealed carry up a notch, because there's a whole lot of thin concealed carry guns out there with a thinner profile, but most of them are pure single stack, and you end up with anywhere from 6 rounds, maybe 7 if you're lucky. With these you can get 10 and more. So let's go ahead and start with the dimensions, because really that is the big thing with these two guns. I'm going to put a flush mount magazine in the Glock, and I'm going to put them as close to side by side as I can. So you can see the Glock is longer. You can see that right away. The Glock is 6.5 inches long, and the Sig is 5.8 inches long. So it's about 0.7 or just under 3/4 of an inch shorter in the Sig. The thickness of them, the Glock is 1.26, and you can see it. It's kind of squared off even with the slightly rounded corners. And the Sig is 1.06, so it's about 0.2 inches thinner in the Sig. And in concealed carry, there's two things that really matter: thickness and length of grip, because the grip is the hardest part to hide, and the thickness makes a difference on kind of where you can carry it and how comfortably you can carry it. Now, interestingly enough, I'm going to flip them around here. The Glock is actually shorter. With the two flush mags, the Glock is 0.13 inches shorter at 4.17 inches versus 4.3 on the Sig. And it's really this angle, the angle of this magazine. The base plate sticks up a little bit. Now, is that height difference going to make a difference? Probably not. Overall, if you can hide this grip, you can hide a 0.13 longer grip. So overall, from a dimensional standpoint, the Sig actually kind of has the advantage. It's also a little bit lighter. Comes in at 17.8 ounces versus 19.4. And weight can matter, especially in concealed carry. So as far as capacity, which of course capacity is one of the big things you're going to look at, both of these in their flush mag configuration are 10 rounds. Both of them have the option of factory mags. Nothing you're going to see here is aftermarket. Everything you see here today is factory mags. So you have a 12 round extended mag available in the Sig, and the Glock offers a plus extension mag, and you can buy these right from Glock, configured and ready to go. That gives you 12. So I can configure both of these guns for 12, and you're still sticking with roughly that 0.13 difference. So you can go a little bit higher in capacity in both of these in about the same footprint as far as the height of the grip, and of course it doesn't change any of the other dimensions. Now that's where the Sig actually stops growing, because at the moment the only mags that are available for the P365 are this, and there's also a 15 round magazine available that fits flush. But the Glock, not only can it do 15, hangs out the bottom, so this is a Gen 5 Glock 19 magazine, so you'll see it supports the Gen 5 magazines. And actually, this gun supports Gen I don't care. Everything back, if you had an original Glock 17 Gen 1 mag, it would work in it, as long as you haven't reversed the magazine catch. You can also use a This is a Glock 19X. It has Glock, came from Glock with the +2 on it. So you've got 19 rounds now. And then there's an assortment of mags that are just too scary to show on YouTube that you can put in this. Basically anything that will work in any double-stacked 9mm Glock will work in this gun. So when it comes to capacity for your reload mag or range day, the Glock really kind of walks away with it because of that flexibility of the ability to use all the different magazines. Now, is that necessarily important in actual concealed carry? It may not be, but it's nice to know you have that flexibility. The Sig has a Sig proprietary rail on it, so you can put accessories that are designed for the Sig rail. It's a popular enough rail. There are accessories out there, even though the majority of them are actually made by Sig. Glock does not have a rail, but the aftermarket has long dealt with that. The Crimson Trace, Viridian, there's a number of companies that make basically trigger guard accessories that mount around this. So both of them are going to give you the flexibility to mount lasers, lights, whatever else it is you want. Now, the Sig does offer an optics-ready version of this gun that you can then put something like a Romeo 1 red dot on it, which has become quite popular these days. Glock does not yet offer a optics-ready version of the 26. They've got what they call MOS in many of their guns, but it's not yet offered in the 26. And while we're talking about sighting solutions, let's look at the sights on these. So the Sig has Sig's X-ray 3-dot sights. They're a night sight, and they're also designed to be easy to see during the day. The front sight really accomplishes that. You can see that here. The rear sight does have a tendency under some range conditions, at least with my eyes, to gray out. So I can see the sights, and they are nice, good quality sights, but I find that, at least during the day, the U-dot sights on the Glock just stand out. They're much easier for me to pick up and see. I can shoot the Glock better, more easily, both from a standpoint of ergonomics, the way it fits my hand, and the fact that I can really clearly see these sights. Now, Glock does come, there are options to get factory Glocks with night sights. They're real hard to find. Most people have the U-dots, and I think it's just because the aftermarket is so established that they just sell them with the U-dots, and if you want night sights, you'll buy True Glow or whatever it is that kind of makes you happy. But you can get the Glock with factory night sights. They're just not common. This also, the Sig also has a SAS version that has kind of a low-profile, snagless sight system. I actually looked at it. It's kind of nice, but one thing I found about it is if you don't find the sights instantly, there's no reference point to locate the sights. You're playing this wiggle around up and down game trying to find that dot. So that SAS design with that real low-profile sight, if you get trained where you pick it up right away, works great. If not, you're kind of on a hunt. Conventional sights like these, you can see where you're off, and it's really easy to find both sights at all times and kind of line up. From a reliability standpoint, the Glock has been around long enough to have all the bugs worked out. These things are known to be reliable, they just work, and they eat just about anything. The P365 kind of got off to a rocky start. They had some issues with the sights and with the barrels and a number of other assorted bits of fun when these first came out. But they did address those, and the later versions like this one here and anything you're likely to buy new today, they've kind of gotten through all that. So these do tend to be reliable and they work well. From a safety perspective, both of them are designed to be drop safe. They have the internal, they're striker guns, both of these are striker guns. There's the internal drop safety pistons that are disengaged as you pull the trigger. But there is one notable difference between the two. Glock has this little toggle, which is an inertial drop safety. And what this does is it prevents on dropping the gun on a linear line, either butt down or nose down, prevents the inertia of the weight of the trigger from moving the trigger and potentially disengaging those internal safeties. These have all sorts of horrible things have been done to these. They've dropped them out of helicopters, they've dropped them off buildings, dragged them behind trucks, and they never go off unless you're pulling the trigger. Sig, like the P320, for whatever reason, refuses to do any type of inertial safety. That did bite them hard on the P320, which gained a reputation for, if you drop it, it's going to go off, even to the point where people are talking about it's in a holster and it goes off. I haven't really found variations that are actually turn out to be true where the gun wasn't dropped. I've not heard of cases where the P365 has gone off during a drop, but it's the same design. There's no inertial safety on this trigger, and there's nothing to prevent the trigger from moving that drop safety piston under the weight of the trigger. So it's something, if you want absolute rock solid, known, tried and true drop safety, you would go with the Glock. If you want to trust this design, which again, I haven't heard anything with the P365 having drop fires, but that'd be probably the biggest concern I would have with this, because this basic design was used in the P320 and did have that problem. Since I happen to have my finger near the go lever, let's actually talk about the trigger on these. So make sure it's cycled. The Sig has a smooth rounded trigger, reasonable take up, kind of a long wall, not really any stacking or creep, and then it breaks at the back of the wall and it stops right there, and it's around the 5.5 pound territory. Overall, it's a decent trigger. There's the reset, so it's got a nice reset. You're right on the beginning of that wall, then you have to pull through the wall and it breaks. My personal preference is I like a crisper wall. I don't like have the vagueness of I'm pulling it and it's feeling like it's going to break and it's feeling like it's going to break and then it finally does. But I'm not going to say this is a bad trigger. It's just not my personal preference. Now, the Glock has about the same amount of take up, and you're on the wall, and you're on a crisp, defined wall, really short pull through the wall, and then it does travel beyond the wall, but it's a very distinct wall. There's your reset, a nice reset, and you're right on the wall. And then again, you pull through a very short wall and it breaks. And it's in the 5.5 pound territory as well. Is either one of them better? I won't say better. It's going to come down to personal preference. A lot of people don't like that defined wall. They like the smoother pull of going through a little bit vaguer wall. It's going to come down to what you like. Take either one of these, try the trigger. Is from a weight perspective, a travel perspective, neither of these triggers beats the other. It's really going to come down to what is it that you like and what feels good to you. Both of these, you can modify the triggers aftermarket. Apex, there's a number of companies that make triggers. So regardless of which one you pick, if the trigger isn't the way you want it, you can get the trigger to be the way you want it. MSRP, now I'm going to mention MSRP because it's really the only consistent guideline. You're not going to buy either one of these today in the current conditions at MSRP. Actually, you may not buy either one of these today, period, because you may not find one. But if you find one, you're probably going to pay whatever they're asking for it, and it's not going to be discounted. But MSRP, $599 on the Sig, $549 on the Glock. So the Glock's about $50 cheaper, but that doesn't necessarily account for the night sights. So the P365 comes for that extra $50, comes with night sights. Even though if I were going to carry this on a regular basis, I'd probably swap the sights out simply so that I had more easily seen sights during the day for me with my eyes. Overall, I don't think you can go wrong with either one. I don't think it's the landmark change that you might think as far as size, because 0.2 inches is noticeable, but it's not a showstopper. This is my EDC, the Glock 26 that you see sitting in front, and I carry this in my pocket. I carry it inside the waistband, and I have no problem carrying this anywhere. But if I were going to go onto my ankle, I probably would actually go with the P365. Less reciprocating mass down there and less likely to hit the other leg as I'm walking. So the P365 might kind of take the lead when you're looking for places to put it that aren't your conventional throw it in the pocket or sit it up alongside you. So one other thing I'll mention about the Glock real quick, it is available in a Gen 5. This is a Gen 4, and this one is a frying pan finish. It's the original Glock finish, so you can tell I've had this thing for a long time. I've had this thing probably 8+ years, and it almost looks like it just rolled off the factory, and I carry this thing all the time. So it holds up well. Gen 5s are available, and I talked about what I would pick. This is still, the Glock 26 is still my EDC. It's not getting kicked to the curb. I like the P365, but in my mind it doesn't offer me anything that I can't get in the Glock. And Hammer as well would choose the Glock. And he's not a Glock fan. He doesn't hate Glocks or anything, but he's not kind of a Glock fan like I am. So oftentimes, depending on what we're comparing, he'll pick the other, let's say the PPQ-SC or the Hellcat, things like that. But in this case, even with this particular comparison, both of us would actually go with the Glock 26. and would put the flush magazines in it. And I think a lot of it has to do with the big thing that the Sig has going for it is that it's thin. But that same thing makes it a little difficult to get a good shooting grip on it. Whereas that little extra bit of grip just kind of wraps in and fits nice in the finger, even with the pinky floating on both of them. So hopefully that kind of gives you some information on the two. Both of them are good guns. Pick the one that fits you the best, and you're most likely going to have a good day with it. If you like our videos, please give us a thumbs up, share, subscribe, click that bell to be notified if you do. Check us out on Facebook, Patreon, Instagram, Twitter, kind of all over the place. Thank you.